Welcome to the Family Church Podcast, brought to you by FBC Irondale. I'm your host, Pastor Steve Voyles, and I'm glad you're here with us. This is a space where real people talk about real faith, real struggles, and the real hope found only in Jesus Christ. Whether you're listening on your way to work, sitting at home, or walking through a storm in life, this is your reminder that God's grace still meets us right where we are. Let's get started. This is our very first podcast. And one goal of this podcast is I want you all to get to know me on a personal level and understand that I'm just another person going through life depending on Christ Jesus like everyone else. And I thought a first guest to point that out could be none other and none better than my son, Carter Voyles. Carter, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks for having me on. And I am a college student at the University of William Woods, and I play basketball there. I'm a cybersecurity major and a criminal justice minor, and I'm a junior as far as basketball goes, but I'm a senior. I'm going to go ahead and graduate this spring.
All right, let's get started with some questions here. First of all, let's go way back. What is one of your earliest memories of us together?
One of my earliest memories would be when you worked at Eminence, and you took me to get biscuits and gravy for breakfast, and that was my favorite breakfast. And then we did my favorite thing after that and went shot hoops in the old gym while all the kids were getting ready for school. And the rest of the day, I spent the day with you at work and got to play a whole lot of basketball all day. And I remember in the break when you actually had to work before basketball practice at the end of the day, the whole entire time I was just ready for basketball practice at the end so I could shoot some more on the side.
That's some good times. That smell of that old gym, too. That instantly makes me think of that memory, actually. Next question. If you had to describe me in 3 words as a dad, what would it be?
Caring, strong, and smart.
Wow. That's pretty nice. Thank you, son. So moving on from some of the early and fun and innocent times, obviously, I was your basketball coach for a large portion of your life, and I know there were some moments in that had to be tough. So what would you say is the hardest moment that we had on the court?
Some of the hardest, or it's kind of a whole season, but we went through it together strong, and it's one of those things where you were telling me, keep putting in the work and it's going to happen, and it happened, but it just not at the time frame we thought it was going to happen. And even some of those words that you told me and words of advice, it has helped me more off the court than on the court. But the hardest thing was you telling me that, like, just keep putting in the work. So we would show up at the gym at 5 a.m. and work for an hour to 2 hours before our practice. And I kept putting in the work, and we put in the work together for a whole season, and it didn't come out that season like the way we wanted it to, but I feel like I learned more as a person, and our relationship grew even stronger that season.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think that's also how I feel about those circumstances. I remember those times, and that's how our relationship with God so often is. When we go through battles, often that's when we get stronger. We don't like it. We never like it. The hard stuff stinks, and it's amazing how those things frame us and shape us far more than the good things sometimes, or they create the good things. And so I think that's mutual feeling. I definitely feel that way as well. Is there a certain game or season that you'll never forget? Or even a moment in a season?
A certain moment in a game, it was against Eminence my senior year, and I feel like it was a high intense game, rivalry game, and I feel like I was working really hard and having a pretty good game, but mainly I was just working real hard, and we ended up going into overtime, and I feel like in that huddle, me and you were more in line and in touch and on the same page as ever, and that felt really good. And I feel like that's one of my favorite memories that I always think back to when I think about basketball.
Yeah, that was a pretty special moment. That's definitely, you're pretty humble in your description of that. You hit that shot in the corner, tie the game up and send us in overtime. You also had multiple rundown blocks, one of which probably the best one that I've ever seen you have, and honestly one of the best high school blocks I've ever seen. That kid shot about a 10-footer and you put it on the stage.
Yeah.
Where I thought we were just giving up a great look to a great player. So a little shout out to Drew Foster there. He's a stud.
I'll say one more though. When one time you weren't actually even coaching, you're in the stands, and my favorite player is Michael Jordan, which Dad used to always tell me, well, you probably want to switch that because you're probably never going to be able to dunk it. So, and also, of course, when you watch Michael Jordan, a little shimmy and fadeaway is one of the favorite ones. And I remember I caught it at the free throw line, and I shimmied, and I hear Dad in the stands go, "Nope, and I went ahead and shot it anyways, fade away, and made it. And
It's one of those no, 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 no. Okay, it goes in. I've had a lot of those moments, but yeah, I remember that one too. One other one. It was a summer game, so the game wasn't quite so impactful. But you had that fall up tip dunk out of nowhere, and in the picture, because we were at East Carter, it's you. There's a picture of you dunking it, and it says Carter, and that's one of my favorite pictures. I still have that one.
yeah,
And that's a good one. So you kind of alluded to this already, but what did you learn from basketball that you apply to your faith?
there's a lot of things, and I feel like that's what I've got out of basketball more than basketball. I feel like my whole life I've looked at basketball and I hear lately it's opened my eyes up that I've been playing for something else my whole entire life. It hasn't actually been to get better at basketball. I feel like it's mentally and spiritually, and I really think it's through all the ups and downs, like we already touched on. Through all the ups and downs, you always come out stronger on the end. You just gotta not stay tunnel vision. There's a
Yeah.
light at the end of the tunnel, but make sure you live in the moment and stay strong in the moment and pray a lot.
I agree. I say that to you a lot. I say that to a lot of people, but enjoy every season. They all pass very fast, and I don't mean by basketball season, but every season of life, every season of your spiritual walk. There's good in all of them, even when you don't see it. In hindsight, we look back and go, that wasn't so bad, or matter of fact, it was even good. And that leads kind of the next question I had here is, speaking of bad, how did I mess up as a coach? And I certainly have something in my mind that I think if we had to redo something that I certainly feel like I messed up sometimes, but I want to know your opinion on it.
There's a lot of what ifs, and you're at different periods in life. You look back and think, man, I wish I would have done that better. And here now, I understand why the what ifs they're not really. I mean, you can always look back and say what ifs, but there's a reason that everything happened the way it was, and I don't look back and regret a thing. But if I look back, I would say that we took it. I feel like it's more us than you. I feel like we took it too serious because it was my life growing up and not a game, and it was literally your job. And so I feel like that it's been my identity since I was a kid, just due to you being the basketball coach. And so I felt like I took it more as a job than a game, and sometimes I lost my kind of laughter in the game and forgot how fun it was because I took it way too serious. And you watch guys like Kobe and stuff like that, and I feel like honestly it was more me than you. It's hard to think of something you did wrong. But I watched guys like that where it was their job in life, and I'm just a high school basketball player, and I kind of forgot that at the end of the day and took it to the next level, and kind of let it ruin other aspects of my life when I should have kept my mind right and kept it pretty lighthearted.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's kind of down the same alley I would go. Is sometimes I expected you to be ahead of where you were, not necessarily from a player standpoint, just a knowledge standpoint, just because, like you said, like literally from the time you could walk, you were in basketball practice. You wore out Little Tykes goals, those kind of things. We watched it, we talked about it, and you were in so many practices. I expected you to walk in as a second, third grader and know everything that you saw in high school practice. And that's not realistic. And sometimes by putting those expectations on you, or even just not pulling you back a little bit, I was always, harder, go harder, more, which wasn't a bad thing, but I should have been reminding you sometimes, enjoy this. This is a game. And although, as we're talking about today, there's so much more to be learned and way more important things to learn from that game than just basketball. And I love that game, but it's bigger than that. And sometimes I forgot to put emphasis on that this is not so much about makes and misses. It's about the experience, the time together for us, the camaraderie of it, the time we spend in there. Every time I walk into a gym, I told you this the other day, every time I walk into a gym of any kind, especially by myself, the first thought that I have is that little boy that followed me into so many gyms and how much that means. And probably should have allowed you to enjoy that. Even though I was enjoying it, I should have put more emphasis on bringing that joy to you, and I think it would have took some pressure off of you. But that's kind of what ifs. But so going from one really tough father-son situation sometimes, although really great one at many times as well. I've also been your pastor for much of your life. Did you ever feel like you had to perform spiritually because your dad was a pastor?
Actually, no, not at all. I feel like you didn't put any pressure on me spiritually. I feel like I knew what I had to do already because of the example you set, and I think that you also taught me not to care what other people think or say because they're always going to say that. And I think if a performance is for other people, it's not for you. And you always taught me to keep your eyes on your spirit, your spiritual faith, and what just keep your eyes on what you're doing and not care about what other people say or think about you. And I feel like I just followed the example you said. I don't think you had to say a whole lot for me to understand what you expected out of me, you know. And I was at the church every time the doors opened as a kid, and I feel like I gained a lot more. I have a lot of fun memories in church, you know. And so I don't. It was always lighthearted. I don't think I ever felt pressure there at all.
Well, that's good. And, something I talk a lot about nowadays, preaching a lot, is be real. We have to get real as a church. We have to get real as people. We have to quit putting on a front. I think that's one thing I've probably done a better job as a parent than I did as a pastor at times. Worrying about offending people, worrying about pushing people to be real and putting that pressure on them. I think your mom and I, where we messed up a lot. I always say we were parents as kids and we made plenty of mistakes. But one thing we never were to our kids were fake. You guys saw when we struggled. You saw when we thrived. You've seen spiritual battles. Your dad, even as a pastor, is not some kind of spiritual icon that's not flawed or doesn't hurt or doesn't, struggle with things. I didn't ever want you to think that. And so, sometimes I question that and worried about that, but I didn't want someday for you to turn around and go, oh, this guy isn't who he says he is, or he wasn't what he's portraying to be. And, I think that's something I encourage people to do all the time. I think it's crucially important. This kind of goes more on a personal level. We've asked a lot of questions, talked about things so far about our relationship in different walks. But, it really comes down to, and something that you alluded to, is your spiritual walk, your salvation, it's yours. And so what is the biggest spiritual challenge that you've faced personally so far, and how did you deal with it?
Man, pause this one for a second.
Tough one.
Yeah. Uh, I've dealt with a lot of them. I feel like those come every single day. Um, Honestly, on the court, it all goes back to basketball, but getting mad at another player or the refs or anything of that matter, and keeping a good representation of yourself and the jersey you're wearing. And I feel like there's times I failed my body language or anything, and that's being selfish to do that. That's not good for your team or the people around you and yourself. At the end of the day, I feel like I didn't represent myself like I should have, and I feel like that's my biggest spiritual battle is just keeping that mindset and remembering who you are even when your emotions are high, because I feel like that's when my emotions have been the highest, and I care about that deep into a game, and you got to remember that. And like you said, it's not an act. Your mind should not go to some of the places it goes when you get upset in a game like that,
Thriving in the storm. Going through a storm's tough. It's tough for all of us. And thriving in the storm, being the best example in the hardest of times, the height of emotions, that's hard for anybody in any circumstance. And we all lose our grip on that every once in a while. And allowing that to go through the filter of God, and sometimes just throwing Jesus in it, helps us there. But certainly we have to be mindful of it. We're kind of getting down to some quicker questions, although a few of them are a little deep. This is more father-son reflection type stuff here. But what's something that you wish I knew back then at any point that you've never told me, but you can tell me now?
I didn't think about telling you back then because I thought that's just how it was supposed to be. But I appreciate every time that you got home from work and I was ready to go squirrel hunt or shoot baskets. And I mean, no one wants to get home from work and clean a squirrel. I understand why every once in a while you may get upset about that. And I really appreciate all those little things, and I see them now and understand them now. And I appreciate the side-by-side rides out. Shoot, I mean, we're always in the woods killing something, and you always having to clean something. And your passion isn't for the outdoors. Now, I wouldn't say you enjoyed having having to clean every squirrel or rabbit or anything like that. But yeah, you did a lot of it, and I appreciate it, and I understand it now. Like how great that is, and how some people don't have that type of father figure.
Um, to kind of give a little bit of context to that, so I do not sit still or I'm not very quiet at all. As anybody that knows me knows. So I wasn't a good hunter. I wanted to be a good hunter because where I'm from, that's what everybody does. Lo and behold, my son absolutely loves hunting. And so it was something that, because he was passionate about it, we certainly spent a lot of time doing it. And while it didn't come natural to me, definitely would not have been my choice of things to do, but I would not take all the money in the world for those memories, or cleaning the squirrels or the deer, the turkey. Half the time I really didn't even know what I was doing, so I figured it out or figured out how not to do it. But that's something that I wanted to do, and to see your love and passion for it, man. That's as a father, that's what you want to see. When your kids are passionate about things, successful at things, and they're enjoying it, and you get to be a part of that. I don't think that ever runs out. I can't imagine that it would, because it's the same now. If you're happy, it makes us happy. Your mother and I we thrive on those moments, and so getting that time is great. And it's definitely worth all the squirrel cleaning. Although I can't begin to imagine the count of squirrels that I cleaned. I did get really good at cleaning squirrels. I could do them very fast there after a
Yeah.
few seasons of squirrel. Um, okay, here's another pretty deep one. What's the first moment that comes to your mind where you felt really proud to be my son?
I can tell you the first moment was district championship against Thayer Turbo Clock. That's definitely the first moment. That was great. And then a moment as a recent is to see you move to a whole entire new town and thrive and build something there. And that's definitely the biggest moment. That is great. I'm very proud to see that and see what you're doing in the school and in the church.
I kind of give you my answer on the inverse of that. I would have to say, if I went proudest moment, it would be most recently. But I feel like that in every time you do something, like, oh, that's the proudest I've ever been. To see you in your first college basketball game, that was something that, like, such an overwhelming feeling. It kind of got emotional just because I knew what you put into that. And to watch the level you carry yourself with and the effort you put into that continually, also the character that you've shown. And I will agree, you've matured in that way. you handle your emotions much better now than you did growing up at times. And so those moments are proud. But honestly, I have to say right now, my most proud moment is the recent conversations that I'm starting to see and realize where your faith is in your life, where that you realize the importance of your walk with Christ, that you understand that's first. And we've had those conversations lately. It's really beyond just one, but the fact that I keep hearing that as a priority and understanding that everything goes through that and everything works towards that and nothing else matters if that's not where it's supposed to be. And I think that's one I would have to put out there. What do you think? And you've talked a little bit about this, but what's something that I've done as your dad do you feel like has helped you the most?
You let me be a boy, but you raised me to be a man.
Whew. That's a tough one. And that's hard to do. That is very hard to do, because you want, I wanted you and your sister to be little forever, but I knew it wasn't going to happen.
I love how confident I feel going into the closer I get to marriage and being a dad myself. I love how confident I feel going towards that and realize how that's where my priorities are starting to go. And I love I feel confident in maturing. I'm not scared to mature because of the example you set and how you've raised me. I feel like you've always raised me to be tough and strong, but also a man that can show emotion and be emotionally intelligent towards your significant other or even your coworkers. And I feel like that's also why you succeed in a church and in the school, is because even though naturally I feel like I'm more that way, you aren't that way. You're not emotionally you're intelligent but not connected, and I feel like that's something you've made one of your strengths, though.
Yeah, that doesn't come very natural to me. Your mom has been a big asset in that regard, because she's very emotional, she's very empathetic, and I have not been. As I age, I'm certainly becoming more that way and appreciating things in different ways. But that that's definitely, a big one, and that's good to hear. Kind of get down the home stretch here. I feel like we're in this season of our life, we're kind of moving um, into not just a father and son, but also a friendship on a different level. Sometimes, although we've always been buddies, um, when you're raising someone, now you're getting closer and closer to being on your own, having your own career, being completely self-sustained. Um, do you kind of feel the same way that I do, that we're kind of moving into that where we're friends? I'm more of maybe a mentor at times, but we're enjoying each other, even somewhat as peers.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's a fun time too. And we got a few rapid fire questions for you, and then we'll finish up here. Um, Favorite Bible verse?
Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It's always been my favorite one because, of course, it applies to all things
Yeah.
and sports and hunting and everything. It is a big verse, and I think it is for a lot of people.
Funniest church blooper?
This one is pretty funny. I was sitting by my Granny Joe in church, and she let me do whatever I wanted. And I threw my Converses up on the pew in front of me and crossed my legs, and did not realize how disrespectful that was. And Dad looked at me, and he goes, "Ah!" and snapped his fingers, and I knew exactly what that meant. I was like, "Yep, I gotta get these feet down off here." I knew I shouldn't take it any further than that.
That's a pretty good one. Yeah, I get you and your sister both definitely bring up some of my noises and snaps and flips and that kind of stuff. That was unknowingly my signatures at times. I have a few noises of your pawpaw that are pretty signature to me and my siblings as well. We've always had pretty good father-son trips. And what is your favorite one that you can remember off the top of your head?
So we have a whole lot of good ones, and they're all real close. But I would say my favorite one is our trip out west elk hunting in Colorado. It was not easy the whole entire time, but it was also fun, and I feel like I came out stronger because it was freezing cold. We didn't see an elk the whole time, but it was a great experience. We saw lots of mule deer and anything but an elk, and it was just great because we were hiking in like 20 inches of snow,
Yeah.
and it wasn't easy, but we had a lot of good talks, and our mindset got a little stronger throughout the way, and I feel like the long car ride over there and the long car ride back was really fun, and I enjoyed it.
That was quite an adventure. One thing I was just thinking about the other day of that trip was when we were hiking up that mountain and that moose came up on us. And I'd never seen a moose before. That thing was massive. It was snowing really hard. We were in deep snow. I actually I thought it was a tree. I was looking over and I thought that tree just moved. And then remember I thought it was a bear.
Yeah.
And then we realized it's a moose. And all I could think about was them charging. And I remember I've actually got a video of this I need to dig up where I said, "Son, if that moose charges us, you get behind this tree over here." And you said, "Dad, if that moose charges us, I'm going to start shooting."
I was just
Do you remember that?
about that yesterday.
Yeah, you weren't fearful at all. You're going to start firing on that
Yeah.
thing. Oh gosh, that there was a lot of fun adventures. Not some of them were obstacles at the time. That was a great trip. I know the answer to this one already, but for the sake of the podcast, what's your favorite pregame hype song?
Fires by Jordan St. Cyr.
St. Cyr, yeah. Jordan St. Cyr. That's a great one. If you haven't heard that song, it's a good one to check out. All right, I'm going to finish up with this question. What does the future of your faith or spiritual walk look like to you?
Finding a home church. My life is that's my number one goal, and my life is very crazy and unorganized right now, back and forth from home and college, because everyone that knows me knows I love home and I love hunting and the outdoors, and you can't get that much around the city. And so I love going back home, but also I need to figure out how to make sure to get to church on Sunday. Growing up with a dad that preaches, you go to church and you really grow fond of one preacher. And I do watch him every Sunday online. And but I feel like there's a different feel when you go into a church itself too. And so that's my number one goal, because I would like for my kids to get to experience what I've experienced in church. And I think that's a great thing to like grow up in church with your childhood. You know, your childhood needs to be in church, and you always come back to that. If you're raised, you know, there's one verse that, you know, if you're raised up that way, then you always come back to it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm coming back to it in the way I need to be. You know.
Praise God. That means a whole lot. Is there anything you want to ask me? We didn't prep for this, but I'll take a fire question if you got
I
one.
would say you answered a few throughout there, but what is as a kid? What when I was a kid? So what's something that I did that you were like most scared that like, or a habit or a trait that you're most scared, like made you most scared? Like I know one like as far as my job goes, you know, I like the outdoors a little too much, so you.
That was one for safety, and shout out to all the loggers and the ones that work in the woods. I appreciate and admire it so much, and we have several people we love dearly that have worked in the woods most of their lives, and of course your Papa Teddy, your Uncle Dale, both of which have had injuries in the woods, and had a cousin that had a severe injury in the woods, and so. I was very afraid because of your love of the woods and the opportunity to essentially hunt on your way to work or on your way home to work. You were going to wind up being a logger, which scared me to death for the sake of safety. It wasn't because I thought that job was not an honorable job, but I was very afraid of that. Outside of that is you're not naturally the most organized guy in the world. I know you've worked on that very hard, but it doesn't come naturally to you. Much like me as being empathetic and some other things, but that's certainly one I know you have to work on. So I have been a little concerned because more than once we have searched for lost items that had not been too far out of sight for very long, and they seem to disappear from the face of the earth. So that was probably two things that I worried the most about.
I got one more. Was there ever a time where you thought, he may like hunting too much and think that deer season he does not need to be in the gym, or any time he does not need to be in the gym?
100%. My when I worked at the parts store, and you were pretty young, and even after I started teaching and stuff, I was still working at the parts store. And one day, Todd Daugherty, shout out to Todd at Big Spring Auto Parts, Van Buren, Missouri, he asked me, he said, "Does your boy like hunting or basketball better?" And I said, "Todd, I'll be honest with you, I'm afraid to ask him that question." And I tried to never put you in that spot because I really felt like I probably knew the answer. I knew that you loved basketball, but I certainly didn't want to put you in a spot where you had to pick between the two or tell me what you like more, because I didn't really want to hear it. So, but yeah, definitely that was something that I was a little bit concerned about. And I'm sure your Papa Teddy probably felt just the opposite about that.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, anything else?
That's it.
All right. Well, that concludes the very first family podcast, and so excited to get to do this. We're going to have a lot of different guests on, church members, community members, maybe different family members of mine along the way, or who knows where this thing will go. But thank you for tuning in. Please like and share this. Subscribe to our channel. This can be found on our website. It can be found on our app. It can be found on our YouTube channel. And I don't know where else it may go from there. But, son, thank you so much for being our very first guest on the Family Podcast. I love you. I'm proud of you. I'm so excited to see what God's going to do in your life going forward. And this was a lot of fun. Everyone, be blessed.